I was pursuing an acting career in Culver City, California. And let me tell you, it was one of the most challenging times of my life. Why? Because I was pursuing an acting career, and it was challenging getting roles as an actor. But what made it really tough was this. I'm going to show you this image. This is what made it really tough. As you can see here, this is Culver Studios in Culver City, California. What made it so challenging for me was the fact that I was pursuing an acting career, trying to get my foot in the door, trying to get someone to see me, Michelle Perdue, but it wasn't happening fast enough. And so every day it was torture for me. Why? Because I lived on the same block as Culver Studios. So every day I would come home from teaching. Whenever I wasn't pursuing acting, I was teaching in the school system. And I would see this building and I would think to myself, oh wow, how awesome it would be to go on that studio lot and let them know who I am, Michelle Perdue. Well, finally, guess what? That day came. There was a day that I woke up and I said, you know what? Today is going to be different. This is going to be a new day and it's going to be a new year. So I got myself up and I marched myself down to that studio lot. And I got there and I got to those gates and there was a security officer waiting at the gate. Even though I was trembling in my shoes, my heart felt as if it was going to pounce out of my chest. I said, hi, my name is Michelle Perdue, and I am here to meet with a casting director. To my surprise, guess what? Those gates opened. I couldn't believe it. I said to myself, what? All these years, all this time, I've been dying to get on this studio lot, and all I had to do was just walk up to the gate and talk to the security officer and say, hi, I'm Michelle Perdue. Once I got on that lot, it then hit me. Michelle, what are you going to do now? You have nowhere to go. So I got on the lot. I'm looking straight ahead. I look to my right. I look to my left. And I just happened to see this tall, dark figure. And I said to myself, ooh, could that be Denzel Washington? Is that Denzel Washington down there waiting for me? So I started to put one foot in front of the other, and I started to walk. Guess what? It was not Denzel. It was a young man taking out the trash. Yes. And so I went up to this young man, and I said, hello, hi, how are you doing? I see that you're taking out the trash. I'm here on this lot because I'm here to meet with the casting director. And so me and him started to talk, and I just kind of lost myself in the moment. And the next thing I knew, maybe about 10 minutes later, who do I see walking towards me? 2 security officers. Once again, I started to shake. My heart started to pounce. And one of the security officers said, excuse me, ma'am, where are you supposed to be? I said, well, I'm here to meet with a casting director. He said, you know what? The security officer who let you in on this lot should not have done that. This is her first day on the job, and she could have gotten fired for that. Oh my goodness. I felt horrible. So here I am on this lot, and now I am being escorted off of the lot by 2 security officers. And I'm doing everything that I can to hold my head up high. It was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. So I'm going to ask you today, has there ever been a time in your life when you wanted a change, when you wanted something new, something different? And when that year came, even though you had high hopes and you wanted to be better and you wanted to do better, something happened along the way. And that thing that happened is that thing called life. Raise your hands if you know what I'm talking about. Raise your hands. I would assume that life happens to all of us. So it taught me something that day. It taught me that, you know what? I finally had the courage to do something that I always wanted to do. But even though I wanted to do that thing and be that thing, life, guess what, is going to happen. And so I'm excited to be here today because in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to share with you some tools that you can use, that you can implement into your life, some practical tools, but some very transformative tools that you can apply to your life so that you can step into the year of 2025 as being the best version of who you are. Because let's face it, as we get older in life, it's a lot harder to attain those things that we want. And it's not that we don't want it. It's that we get in our own way by simply getting comfortable with being where we are in life. So I want to share with you today what I like to call the 3 B's of a prosperous beginning. And I want you to repeat that after me. 3 B's of a prosperous beginning. Okay? Because at the end of the day, when you walk out of here, that's what I want you to remember. I want you to remember these 3 B's. Because I want you to ultimately have a transformative experience today. Meaning, the way you came in here today, I want you to leave here standing a little taller and shining a little brighter. And that first B is bounce back. Bounce back, right? Meaning you are ready to take life head on. You see, as a resilience speaker, I have an opportunity to go into various organizations and work with their employees in terms of helping them to cultivate resilience, to support their health and their well-being so that they're feeling less stress, and so that they can communicate their wants and needs. So when you see this image here, you see 2 people who have backpacks on, who are ready to enjoy life. My question for you today is, are you carrying a backpack, which are your tools to cultivate resilience? And if so, what is in your backpack? Because the reality is, when I talk about resilience, we all have what's called an innate physiological resilience system within us that a lot of times we take for granted. And that innate physiological resilience system has to do with our fight, flight, or freeze response. And each and every one of us was born with that. But see, this is where the problem lies. So often we depend on our innate physiological resilience system that we forget that we need to go outside of ourselves to build up these tools so that we are able to face resilience in a very proactive way. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So in terms of bouncing back, ultimately that's what resilience is. It's being able to have the resources that you need to face life head on so that you can bounce back. But even more so, it's not just about bouncing back, but can you bounce forward? Because at the end of the day, when you face life challenges, which you will in the year of 2025, regardless of what your hopes and your inspirations are for that year, you will face obstacles. But the thing about it is, it's not just about bouncing back. Are you willing to bounce forward? Are you willing to see and learn from your mistakes? Because so often that's why we keep making the same mistake. That's why year after year, that no matter what we want, we find ourselves in the exact same position because we haven't allowed ourselves to be fully self-aware and to ask ourselves the right questions. There's a psychologist in California, and he came up with this formula, Dr. Resnick, Robert Resnick. And he says event plus response equals outcome. Regardless of whatever event that you may face in the year of 2025, the good news is no matter what event you face, you have an opportunity to change your response, which ultimately will change your outcome. So regardless of whatever happens to you, what is your response to that situation? How are you responding? Are you making the decision to ignore a situation? Now, I don't know about you. I know there's times in my life where I've said to myself, you know what? I know that this is an issue in my life, but I don't have time to deal with it. I'm going to put it on the back burner. And guess what? It never goes away. Why? Because wherever you go, you are always going to find who? You. You're always going to find yourself. And so, are you willing to change your response? And one of the ways that you can change your response is being in touch with your voice. How are you using your voice? I truly believe that our voice, we don't choose our voice chooses us. And let me explain what that means. When you were a kid, especially from your parents, they communicated with you in a way that shaped how you see the world and how you would express yourself. But unfortunately, our parents were not the best storytellers. Our parents didn't always tell us the truth. Have you ever talked back to, let's say, your mom? And your mom, I don't know what kind of mom you have had, you have, but my mom at times would say to me, you know what? I brought you in this world and I will take you out, right? So that left me feeling like, oh my goodness, my mother has all the power in this relationship. Where do I fit in? Where is my voice? When will my voice be validated? But see, she didn't tell me the whole story. The other part of that story was, you know what, sweetheart, I love you. And I value what you have to say. It's just that the way that I was raised, I was taught that children should be seen and not heard, right? And so we've gotten these messages from our parents and from our upbringing that has stayed with us for many, many years. And the reality is that so many of you are holding on to certain stories, regardless of how old you are, whether you are a high school student or you're at retirement age, maybe you're 70 or you're 80 or above. But we hold on to these stories that shape who we are, which ultimately determines how we enter into the next phase of our lives, as well as the next year. So my question to you is, what are you willing to change in terms of your voice so that you can optimize your humanity and truly step into the year of 2025 and be the person that you want to be? But you have to be willing to say yes. You have to be willing to allow yourself to be vulnerable. You see, in addition to being a speaker, I'm also a trained actor. And so I graduated from the Ruskin School of Acting in Santa Monica, California. And through my years of training to be an actor, I've had an opportunity to take improv classes. And one of the fundamental rules of being an improv is the concept of yes and. Raise your hands if you've ever heard of yes and. Absolutely. Okay, so we got some people who've heard of yes and. So what I would like to do is I'd like to do this exercise. I would like to call up a volunteer. Do I have a volunteer to practice this yes and? Kyle, can you come up? It does not surprise me that Kyle was willing to volunteer and come up. I've had an opportunity to speak to this young man today, and it is just such, you just make my heart smile just because you're so open and so willing to share your story. So it doesn't surprise me that he's up here. So in order for a scene to begin, particularly in improv, everyone in the scene has to agree. And you can never say no, because if you say no, that means you negate the opportunity for the scene to move forward. Okay? So if we were engaging in this exercise, it's called yes and I was A and you were B. And I said to you, I ran out of peanut butter this morning. And so what, okay, I ran out of peanut butter this morning. In order for the scene to move forward, you have to agree with me. So then you would say yes and then you would complete that sentence. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, whatever answer you have, it's not wrong. It's going to be right, because that's just the way the game works. Okay, but you can't say you didn't run out of peanut butter.
Right.
Okay, you can't disagree, right? Okay, so if I said to you, Kyle, I ran out of peanut butter this morning.
Wow.
Yes,
Have you ever tried jelly instead?
Yes, I have tried jelly, and that's a great idea. Absolutely.
Perfect.
What if I said to you, you know what, Kyle, my left toe is bigger than my right toe? Yes, and you say yes and then you would
That probably means that you got to have a bigger shoe on your right foot.
Okay. All right, that's a really good answer. Thank you, Kyle.
I also just want to say that the reason I was so willing to volunteer is because I did get to spend time talking to her, and I knew before, I didn't even know she was the speaker. Like, my dad brought me here, and I was like, I can't wait, we always have good speakers. I didn't read the article about who was speaking. Had I known that, I probably would have reacted differently. But I was so excited to meet her and just like hear about her stories. And then when she said she's speaking, I'm like, you're going to be perfect. So I am so happy.
You're going to have a different reaction based on simply who you are, because it's a lot easier for people to yes and than others, especially depending on what the situation calls for. So what I would like for you to do is find someone at your table, somewhere close by. There's going to be a person A and a person B. And the person A is going to make a statement, but the statement has to contain information in it. So you want to refrain from asking a yes or no question, right? You want to give some information so that other person has something to play off of and are able to respond to you with. So we'll have a person A and a person B. The person A will make a statement, and the next person will have to agree and say yes and then they will complete the sentence. So we're just going to take a couple minutes to do this, but I want you to get the opportunity to see what it feels like, that sense of vulnerability when it comes to yes and how it can apply in your own personal life. And so at this time, if you can find just someone close, someone by you. If I can have your attention, thank you so much. I appreciate you engaging in this exercise. Thank you so much. It sounds like you are really engaged in this exercise. As I was looking around the room, I could see a lot of smiles on your faces, and I could hear a lot of chatter. So I just want some volunteers to share. What was that experience like for you? Maybe what did you learn about yourself? Who can share? Yes.
Well, I found that it was really easy to ask a yes or no question because you want that easy feedback. So I had to really think about asking the question so you could get feedback from the other person.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I just realized that when somebody says something to me, I have a tendency to say yes, but. They say, well, I can't stand, I'm no good at this, and I go, well, yes, but you're good at something else.
Okay, great, thank you. And that's another concept. We have yes and, but yes, but is another concept. Yes.
I found myself actually being less concrete and more inspired by James whole project. I mean, it just entered into something totally different than I thought it was going to be.
Wow. Thank you. Did anyone feel a little bit uneasy, like you felt like you were put on the spot and you didn't know what to say? Yes.
I feel like it's very difficult if it's not like a super positive thing. So she did a great job. She said, I can't believe it's snowing or outside, and it's yes, and at least we're all here, But like, it's so much easier to yes and when it's like something positive, like you did a great job, yes, and you were a great listener, like something positive. But I think the yes but part is hard because a lot of times you have pessimistic people that might be saying negative things, and it's hard to yes and I don't want to agree with that. But
Right. Yes, thank you for sharing, Cal. I appreciate that. So this exercise, I really wanted you to have this experience because ultimately at the end of the day, this is how life works. You're going to come up against some challenges, and the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to yes and, or are you going to yes what? Are you going to yes but? And sometimes we yes but, and we slow down the momentum of our lives, and we change the trajectory of our lives because we're not willing to see the opportunities that we have available to us. We don't see the resources that we have that can truly change our lives. So I want you to keep that in mind. Yes, and. The next B is about being you, being your true, authentic self. You see this man that's looking in the mirror? So often when we think about being our true, authentic selves, we see ourselves as being one-dimensional, where we are self-aware, but we are not selves-aware. Does that make sense? You see, just like we have various dimensions of our lives, whether it's our family, whether it's educational or spiritual, we also have various dimensions of who we are as a person. And sometimes if you are not aware of who you are and how you show up, you rob yourself of being the true, authentic version of who you really are. So I want to talk first about how can you be you? How can you be the true, authentic you? And I think this is a question that no matter how old you are and how much life experience you have, I truly do believe that this is a question that arises in so many of our lives because there are many people who simply do not know who they are. They attach their title with who they think that they are. But see, who you are is not your title. Being your true authentic self is when you are able to allow to operate in your values. When you know what your values are, but it's not just knowing what they are, but are you willing to put your values into action? There's a psychologist by the name of Elizabeth Hopper, and she has come up with a framework of how to be you. And she says to reframe your vulnerabilities. Are you able to reframe your vulnerabilities? Now, I have a book up here that I've wrote, Rise and Shine, How to Live a Life of Resilience and Perform at Your Potential. And let me tell you, as I was writing this book, there was times when I would ask myself, is this something that I really want to share with the world? And so in this book, there's literally 12 chapters of stories, of obstacles and struggles that I've had to endure in my life that I've then turned into a message for other people. So it wasn't easy sharing that I am a cancer survivor. And not to give much of the other chapters away, but I had to reframe what vulnerability meant for me. Because some of us want to truly be the best version of who we are, and we want to show up as our authentic selves, but we literally have one foot in and one foot out. Why? Because it's safe. And as long as you continue to play it safe, the more likely you are going to operate as a fraction of who you are. Now, I don't know about you, but I know when I leave this planet, I want to die full. I want to leave knowing that, hey, I gave it my all. I was willing to show up and to truly get to know who I was in every aspect of my life. Then there's cultivate mindfulness in order to be you. So often when we think that we are thinking with our brain, guess what? We're not really thinking with our brains. We have a heart brain, but we also have a gut brain. We tend to think that we're just thinking with our heads, but sometimes we ignore our internal voice. And our internal voice guides us and lets us know, hey, you're on the right track. Keep putting one foot in front of the other and go this direction. But sometimes when we make our biggest mistakes, it's when we choose not to listen to our inner voice. And our inner voice is speaking with us every day, all day. Today I had an opportunity to sit next to Kyle here. And somewhere in his inner voice, before he even knew that I was a speaker, he felt comfortable sharing his life story with me. He listened to his inner voice. He didn't say, you know what? I don't know this woman. I don't know who she is. I don't know what her story is. I don't know how to maybe engage with a woman of color. But that did not stop him. And because he shared his story with me, it made me more vulnerable and more open to share my story with him. He said, you know what? I love working with kids. And I'm like, the next thing I said to him was, what I say, Kyle? So do I. I got my master's degree in education. I was a teaching artist in the Minneapolis public school systems where I would go and work with kids and help them with their self-esteem. And I would combine improvisation and we would have a wonderful time. But I would have never known that about him if he wasn't willing to step outside of who he was, to be vulnerable, to get to know who I am. Because I'm a firm believer that the only thing that separates you from me, regardless of who you are, what age you are, what ethnicity, what religion you are, is what? Our stories. If you knew what my story was, then guess what? That would put you in touch with what? Your humanity. If you knew what my story was, that would allow you to feel some of the challenges and struggles that I'm feeling, to the point where you say, you know what? I'm not just going to stay in my backyard. I want to be in touch with my humanity so that I can engage with this person on a very human, fundamental level. But so often, because we're not willing to share our stories, it creates a barrier between our humanity. Seek out situations to let you be authentic. Allow yourself to be in situations and around people, places, and things that would allow you to show up as the best version of who you are. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, you ever, especially when you were younger, or even today, when you've been invited to go to someone's house maybe for the holidays, and it could even be with your family, and some of you might be thinking, oh no, who's going to be there? You may find out a particular relative is going to be there, and you're like, oh wow, I really don't want to go. But then you don't say that because why? They're your family. Your internal voice will lead you and guide you to places that make you feel like you are being your true authentic self. And one of the easiest ways that I've learned to be my true authentic self is to engage in a hobby. And raise your hands if you have hobbies. Okay, we got quite a few people that have hobbies. If you do not have a hobby, if you are not doing something proactive to engage your mind, I would suggest that you pick up a hobby, because it will literally transform your life. And I'm saying this because I know this on a very personal level. I discovered when I lived in California that I enjoy writing poetry. I remember sitting on my floor in the living room, and I was waiting for some furniture to be delivered. And I was auditioning for the Vagina Monologues. Does anyone know Eve Ensler? Okay. I was auditioning for the Vagina Monologues, and I said to myself, wow, I have my own vagina. I can write my own material. And that's exactly what I did. But for some reason, my thoughts were coming out in the form of poetry. And so I embraced that. And so now when I speak, I incorporate poetry. So I'm going to share a poem with you that will inspire you to be you. Can I do that with you today?
Yes.
I was surprised to realize all that I had inside. Having to prove myself to Hollywood for the umpteenth time. Had to wait in line for my time to shine to prove to them that I was worth more than a dime. I said to myself, let's stop, rewind, wasting your time and mine. No, you take a seat. Give me a chance to show you, a chance to be me, be free. Let me live out my dreams. Don't try to overlook me because of something that you can't see. I am not a wannabe, I am coming to you with originality. See, I was like this volcano that was just waiting to explode, had so much inside of me, didn't know how to let it go, let it flow, let it show. The fire oozing inside of me. Whew, okay, let me stop and breathe, release this tension inside of me. Fears and all my anxieties. Free myself from that stress, feel blessed with all that God has given me. Now I can stop and exhale and smell the roses in life by not getting caught up in that, Hollywood hype. Not fitting their type. Too dark, too thin, not willing to sin. Do anything to win, just to fit in. But I stood tall, I embraced it all. Rejection, my lack of perfection, being told that I should take my life into another direction. Instead, I listened to my inner voice, and once I did, I had no choice. I rejoice today because I'm the woman that I always knew that I could be. I'm not asking for their approval because I know my destiny. See, if you don't already know, then let me explain. I was put on this earth to, change things. Make a difference in the lives of people who have self-doubt. God wanted me to share my stories, my struggles. He wanted me to reach out. Now, don't get confused. I'm not saying that my life is any better than you. God gave us all talents that he wanted us to use. I'm not trying to abuse, but rather amuse you into believing the things that you were born to do. See, some people know their talents and some don't. Some will discover them and some won't. But I'm here today to say that you don't have to settle for less. Working a job and not giving it your best, I press to stress the importance of looking from within. Stop listening to the world to find peace in your skin. I said stop listening to the world to find peace in your skin. I know it's not easy to leap out on faith, afraid of the unknown, thinking it's a mistake, so then you wait, procrastinate, afraid to live the truth, willing to compromise your dreams, Denny, instead of being you. But see, I'll be your cheerleader. I'll encourage you if you fall. I'll be there to pick you up and to help you stand tall. I want you to win that battle and finish to the end. Be yourself and do you. Never, ever give in. Thank you. So this is a picture of me here recently. Last month, or 2 months ago, I believe, I was speaking to nearly 3,000 people. And I walked into this room reciting a poem. And I cannot tell you, the people who came up to me afterwards saying how, my poetry has impacted them. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is that this is my story, but I want you to inspire you to do things that make your heart smile and your soul sing. Okay? Belong. Allow yourself to belong. And when I talk about belonging is not easy for a lot of us because as we age, we're not part of the same groups anymore. Some of you may be retired, where your job defines you. Your job defines your identity. And also, as you get older, to be quite honest with you, we start to lose people in our lives just simply because of the aging process. But we have to be very intentional in terms of creating belonging for ourselves. And so there's an article that talks about, that has an integrated framework for belonging, and it talks about competencies. See, in order to feel as if you belong, you have to have certain competencies. And do you know what those competencies are? Meaning, do you know not only how to relate to other people and understand what their feelings are, but do you know how to do that for yourself? See, I think it's one thing for you to want to belong and to feel included going into the year 2025 and creating those spaces where you feel psychologically safe to show up and to be the best of who you are. It's one thing to do that for yourself, but also, are you doing that for other people? And one of the easiest ways to do that is to understand how people communicate in meeting, understanding what is their representational system. Meaning, each and every one of you, we talk in certain patterns. We use certain predicates when we share our stories and we communicate our thoughts and our ideas. So my question to you is, are you listening with all of your being? Are you engaged in active listening when you are communicating with other people? To not facilitate a sense of belonging for yourself, but also for others. Opportunities. Are you creating opportunities for yourself to belong? I have to tell you, it was so nice to hear, before I came up to speak, all the opportunities that you have in the Optimist Club. How cool is that? Opportunities to get out and to engage in the community, to use your gifts and your talents to help the next generation come up. So my question to you is, what opportunities are you creating for yourself? And not all opportunities are created equal. Sometimes it's okay to say yes, but, right? Because you know that's not in your wheelhouse. But I want you to start expanding your mind in 2025 and thinking about where you would like to show up. What circles would you like to be in? What groups of people do you want to engage with? Then there's motivations. In order to belong, you have to feel motivated. Are you motivated to get active, to engage with your community? Motivation is very personal. We are all motivated by different reasons. What motivates you? What gets you up every day? What gets you excited? I want you to think about that. Perceptions. When it comes to belonging, what is your perception of belonging? Once again, belonging means different things to different people. How do you perceive belonging? Because if you are not clear about how to perceive belonging, you'll never truly know if you actually belong in different groups or whatever that may be, whatever that is for you. What is your perception to belonging? I know for me personally, what makes me feel as if I belong is when I am in a situation where I'm surrounded by other people who may not look like me. I love diversity. I love diversity. If you look at my family, I have every shade of people, it seems like, in my family. I love diversity. And so when I think of belonging, I want to be in a space where I feel loved, where I feel accepted. And sometimes you may not even be loved, but it's a matter, do you respect me? Do you respect my thoughts and my ideas? Are you willing to let me not just sit at the table, but can I share? Do you value my voice? I'm going to share a story with you as I come to an end with belonging. There once was this little old lady who was as round and as plump as a watermelon that she would share with her grandchildren on a hot summer day. And although she was poor, she had a heart of gold. And you always knew when she was in a good mood. Because if she sang the song, Wade in the Water, anybody know that song, Wade in the Water, you knew her heart was heavy that day. But if she sung, children go where I send thee, how should I send thee? I'm gonna send thee a one by one. Does anybody know that song? Okay, well if she sung that song, then you knew it was gonna be a good day. Well, she worked many years at a local hospital, making beds and scrubbing floors and toilets. And she knew how important it was to volunteer. So she got her granddaughter to volunteer, or wanted to volunteer at the very hospital that she had worked. And initially, her granddaughter said, well, Grandmama, why do you want me to volunteer? She says, I'm black, I'm poor, I get a welfare check for $140 a month, I wear secondhand clothes, I cash in pop bottles for bus fare. You raised your children in the projects, my mother raised her children in the projects, and I'm probably going to do the same. Well, she gave it some thought. And after giving it some thought, she changed her mind and she decided to give it a try. How do I know? I know because that granddaughter was me. So volunteering at the hospital gave me a sense of belonging, made me feel as if I was somebody. I didn't care about the dinginess of my shoes. I put one foot in the other and I walked with pride, because when a woman walked into the emergency room with a child limped in her arms saying, this child has just been abused, where do I take him? I knew that my life would never be the same. So I say that to you because I want you to start being very intentional about the power of belonging, because the world will continue to tell you who you are and where you belong. You know you're too old to wear that hairstyle, right? You know you're too old to be wearing that bright color suit, right? The world is going to continue to tell you who you are and how to show up in the world. But guess what? You have the power to determine how and where you belong. So today I talked about the 3 B's of a prosperous beginning. I talked about bouncing back, having the resilience and being able to use your voice in whatever situation so that you can yes and, despite what challenges you may be facing. Are you ready to yes and? So what I want you to do is I want you to think about something in your life right now that if you changed your perception or if you changed the way you thought of something, how it could drastically change your life. But because of the way you think and the way that you are communicating to yourself, you tend to stay stuck in the status quo. You tend to stay stuck in what I like to call the muck of life. So what is that for you? What could you change today if you were just simply to allow yourself to look at that situation differently and ultimately communicate to yourself in a different way, to where you are having more self-compassion for yourself? We talked about being able to be you, being your true authentic self. Not just being self-aware, but are you selves-aware? Are you able to look at the various contexts of your life to realize how you are showing up? And if you don't like the person that you're seeing in the mirror, it's up to you to change him or her. And then finally, belong. Are you willing to allow yourself to belong in places where society is telling you, hey, I know you're trying to come in these doors, but this isn't for you. You get to determine where you belong. And once you do that, your whole world will literally change. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And have a great day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.